Solomon Igosangwa Shibairo, the Vice Chancellor of Masinde University of Science. It matters climate change. We have been driving it in the school, as I said, disaster management. This school began with this story of the original days, and it was very well known in the country for giving the only PhD in matters disaster management, and hence issues to do with climate. For now, as a university, we have done a few activities that I will mention randomly that help in resolving or mitigating the issue of climate. We are solarizing the university in Ephesus. These panels provide solar energy to this building and the library. We solely now power these buildings with the solar energy. And we believe in 5 years, the whole campus will be done. We are an information hub to the community around in matters of climate. For example, Kutanyesha Lini, we have a weather station and we are able to provide good information real time. We have been involved in what the government has done us in this Kenya Kwanza vision of the issue of planting trees in various ways. We planted trees in the Kakamega forest here, in our university here, and in the communities around. We went even as far as planting the mangroves in Mombasa and in Narok to trying to achieve our objectives. We're also involved in the issue of carbon trading. The only headache we have had is the issue of sharing revenue. There's no policy, because there are now so many players who say, I'm into, so what do you do? But we are in there. Finally, just to tell you that we have our own research kitty of about 50 million. 20% of it is geared towards matters climate change. I do not want to leave this but to ask you to join this university if you have any children, because we have all areas, not just apart from climate, matters climate being strong, but all other areas are taken care of. You heard me mentioning engineering, there's agriculture, there is health sciences, which include medicine, which include public health sciences, and nursing. We are partners with various foreign people that the nurses we produce here not only work in Kenya, but they can work in the UK and United States without doing any other course. Then we have education for teachers, business studies, social studies, and many others. So I am urging the public, Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology, the premier university of science and technology, the university of choice.
A very good evening and welcome to the Climate Action Town Hall, the Western Region edition. We are live for you from the Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology, a very significant institution if the war against climate change has to be won. Now tonight, we are continuing the discussion and the conversations around climate change. At the end of the night, we shall have assessed the impact of climate change in this region, not only Kakamega, but the Western region as a whole. We'll also look at possible interventions as a county, that's Kakamega, or as a caucus, as a whole of this region. What are they doing to mitigate against the impact of climate change? And possibly, what do they require to mitigate against the effects of climate change? Some non-desirable. Now, tonight we have an audience and we also have panelists up here. I'll be introducing them to tell you exactly what they're discussing. And we're privileged to have two governors, one of them being in charge or being the chair of that special committee within the Council of Governors that deal with environmental matters. I'll be introducing them next, but as I mentioned, we have a crowd here. My name is Ken Mijungu, and welcome. For the next 1 hour and a half, we'll be delving on issues of climate change, mitigation, and possible support to make sure that at the end of the day, we understand exactly how climate change will be mitigated. But first, before I introduce my panelists here, I'd like to take you to my colleague, Dennis Aseto, who will also be leading part of the discussion.
We are coming to you live, and as Ken will be handling the eminent persons, the panelists on this discussion on matters climate change. On this other side, we have researchers. Remember that we are in an academic institution. We have academia, researchers, also the audience who will just be responding on what will be said at that panel. And with that, we're going to be hearing on what it is they have to say, the solutions they want done, and even tasking the men in charge on what it is they need to do. It is not just a conversation about those at the panel, but also the audience, and specifically where I am Sunday, I shall be taking charge of the academia researchers who are here. But I'm not here alone. Alan Ochanda, our regional reporter, is here, and we shall also be taking it over. Ochanda.
Well, good evening. From the highest point of Western Kenya in Mount Elgon, the ecosystem of Mount Elgon, to the farthest end of Odiado Hills in Busia County, to Vihiga at the Maragoli Hills, and then finally here in Kakamega, the iconic Kakamega Forest. All of them compound, and of course just from the ecosystem, and of course the water tower, where several streams emanate from. But due to human activities, we've seen the dwindling levels of water in those streams, and also compounded by the erratic patterns of rains in this particular region. All those tribulations, and of course, the ongoing encroachment on the forests. But what exactly are the policies being laid down by the counties of Western Kenya, Vihiga, Kakamega, Bungoma, and Busia to ensure they mitigate against the effects of climate change? Take a look.
The Kakamega forest is special in the sense that it is a habitat to thousands of species of butterflies and birds, not forgetting that special root from this climber tree that depends on other trees for growth, Mokombero. But this particular forest is on the verge of losing its glory due to reasons like charcoal burning, logging, and above all, erratic weather patterns. Deep inside the once thick Kakamega forest, and one can easily tell the damage that is akin to defiling the tropical rainforest.
Uprooted by
Daniel Muchesia has lived within the Shinyalu locality all his life, and this forest has been a source of livelihood to him. He is, however, worried that some treasures like Mukombero and other creatures that depend on it will soon be disadvantaged.
Currently, it is not possible to get even a single vine within the Kakamega forest. They have actually gone extinct. Reason being, we have been having a lot of encroachment, and due to a lot of people's activities who have been going to uproot those mondia within the forest.
The forest has been totally interfered with, and erratic rain patterns have compounded the situation. Locals flood the forest to burn charcoal, logging, and in search of medicinal plants. This venture has seen the Mokombero plant diminish, and some locals have resorted to domesticate it.
And some parts are actually, they like square number of varieties of trees. And you'll find that those particular trees that are actually of interest to those particular parts are not there. They've been cut down, maybe by poachers, or by people who have been actually encroaching the forest, coming for the purpose of medicinal purposes, or coming for commercial purposes to cut these particular trees for their own use.
Different butterflies feed on different vegetation. So when a particular vegetation is destroyed, you realize that over time, that particular species of butterfly, it tends not to be there after some times. Also, because the forest is a habitat for different birds and different primates, over time, if the habitat is interfered, most of those animals, you realize that they move out of the forest and even cause a lot of human-wildlife conflicts, or they disappear after some time.
The forest, just like Maragoli Hills, Mount Elgon ecosystem, are water towers. The continued assault has seen water levels in streams that emanate from the forest dwindle. Individuals have also encroached on wetlands and practiced poor agricultural activities like growing of eucalyptus trees.
Maragoli Hills in late 80s was seriously degraded through a very calculated move, which was actually, I would say, engineered by the national government, or the people, the civil servants who are in the government played a very crucial role in clearing the natural forests that were on Maragoli Hills. And they left Maragoli Hills bare with only stones. And as a result, most of the rivers started drying.
We have now told the villagers around the ecosystem not to continue planting eucalyptus trees because eucalyptus trees are not very good for water catchment areas. We have a very proactive department on climate action. We have trained our ward climate champions, and you know we have 60 wards who are actually having committees in their respective wards, basically to sensitize our residents on the importance of conservation. And for me, those initiatives, especially at the ward level, where we have climate action agents, goes a long way in sensitizing people.
The trees are said to absorb large amounts of water, degrading riparian land, and in the long run flooding which has been witnessed in Rivayala and Nzoia. It is a wall chain. As water towers dry, human beings deplete forests, streams dry, land shrinks, and thus the agricultural food chain is at risk too, and ingenious ways must be employed. Agriculture being a devolved function, it lies squarely at the feet of the devolved units.
We're also encouraging our farmers to basically do what we call conservation agriculture. Our conservation agriculture is where farmers are encouraged to plant drought-resistant crops like cassava, potatoes. This, for me, will go a long way in ensuring that we have actually food secure county in Kakamega.
I'm now encouraging smart agriculture. Agriculture that you don't need a lot of land. You only need to use technology to be able to produce what food you want.
Kakamega Governor Fernandez Baraza and his Viga counterpart Dr. Wilbur Otichilo, noting the seriousness of the climate change menace, have set up ward-based climate committees that sensitize residents at the level to create awareness. The extent of the ecosystem defilement, however, experts warn, have far-reaching effects, and mitigation measures must be put in place, including county and the National Assembly, formulating punitive laws that will help safeguard Mother Nature. Alan Ochanda, KTN News.
Right, to our audience, your presence here is not in vain. You'll have an opportunity to shoot your questions to the panelists and the experts who are in the room. Now, let me introduce my panelists tonight. Judith Libaisi is a rural development specialist. She'll be giving us a view from the ground in Asemaji. She'll be telling us that tonight. And, of course, her presence is highly appreciated tonight. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right, thank you. And our host, Governor FCP Fernandez Baraza, is the governor of Kakamega County. Kakamega has so many natural resources, and we want to know, in his plan, are there sustainable plans for him? What is he doing on the ground? I've just had Alan Ochanda say that he has established ward development sort of fund to mitigate against climate change. We'll be talking to him about that shortly. Thank you, Governor, for coming.
Asante sana.
And Dr. Wilbur Otichilo, Vihiga Governor, just a neighbor here to Kakamega, is also with us. Very fundamental for the discussion tonight because he takes the views here and shares it with 47 other governors. Thank you so much, Governor, for coming.
Thank you for the invitation and for my participation in this session.
Karibu sana. And finally, Professor Francis Orata Omoto, the role of research. And of course, to introduce him fully, he's a professor of environment and director of research and postgraduate support at this great university. He'll be giving us a perspective from the academia. Professor, thank you so much for joining us. Asante sana. I'll start with the only lady in the crowd and your view from the ground, an overview of the impact of climate change.
Thank you very much. I must start by wishing all women happy International Women's Day.
Did you just ask me to wish women happy International Women's Day? Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, and thank you very much for considering also to have a woman on this panel. Please, your question again.
An overview. I know I confused you. Did you realize the governor has purple?
Yes, I was with him in the International Women's Day celebration.
You encouraged him to wear purple. I said your overview of climate change from the ground.
Thank you very much. As Ken has said, my name is Libaisi Judith, a rural development specialist, and right now I am an agroecology and biodiversity advisor. I work with communities who have been impacted with the effects of climate change. And right now, an overview of what has happened is that in Western Kenya, we highly depend on rain-fed agriculture. And as it were, we have that erratic rainfall. We have increased temperatures, which have increased pests and diseases among our farming communities. We have emerging weeds that we never used to have. We have lost lots of biodiversity. I know as I look at the audience, most of them have not seen the quails that used to be there when we were growing up. So that is also another effect of climate change. And I would say right now, we are also missing out a lot on our local delicacies. There are no mushrooms, Ken. We don't have now the biggest one, which is chiswa, it's termites. We don't have them anymore. So I would say that we are losing that on a high rate. And we have noted land degradation as the main area that has been impacted by this. And being on this day, I should also mention that women and youth, who really are our key pillars in this agri-food sector, have also been impacted on a high rate, being that they are vulnerable and also that they do not have access and control to land.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who knew the absence of quails and mushrooms eventually will be attributed to climate change? But very good perspective from the ground. Professor Mboto, I'll give the governors your overview now that you deal with a lot of research.
Thank you. What my colleague has said is what we are observing. But the matter of climate change, I just want to, I'll use simple language, not like a professor. I want to tell you that I look at it in two different categories. There's what we as a people we have done to the environment. That is one category. What he's saying, long time ago, we had some forest, some wetland around our houses where we used to even see some monkeys and what. But we went and cut trees and destroyed. Poor land use. That is one. The effects are the same, but we can't categorize the same. But now we have what we call climate change, which sometimes we don't view it. Climate change is a global issue, and this one can only be attacked globally. And I'm talking about the real cause of climate change, where we start with greenhouse gases going up, global warming to climate change. But these other ones, we just cleared the forest ourselves because of population increase. We went, we went to where we had the springs, the good water there, something, and destroyed. This one, we can mitigate it in some years. But the climate change that is caused by greenhouse gases, global warming, going to weather pattern phenomenal changes, and then to climate change as a trinity. That one, we can now deal with it globally. That is my take on it.
Okay, a good place to begin the conversation from academia. But let me bring this to the governor of Kakamega County. Would you attribute the rainfall and ending rainfall throughout the year to climate change, especially in this region? And would you say that's a good thing or is a bad thing for this region?
First and foremost, I want to confirm that Kakamega is an agricultural county. where our GDP county gross product is supported largely by agriculture to an extent of almost 52%. Yeah, so we take a lot of pride to make sure that matters on climate action are taken seriously, because for us to have our water catchment areas, which basically becomes our source of water, here we have the Mau complex, we have the Mount Elgon catchment area, we have Cherangani catchment area, which supports a lot River Yala and River Nzoia, that gives us rainfall, because we believe that we have to have strategies on making sure that our catchment areas are actually protected. And therefore, the forests we have in Kakamega, we have gazetted almost 5 forests. Kakamega Forest, of course, being the only tropical rainforest in East Africa. We have Malaba, we have Misango Hills, we have Lugari, and we have taken specific measures to make sure that we protect our water catchment areas by enacting specific legislation through our assembly, basically to protect our environment. I know Governor Otichilo and I, we also have a special program on protecting our Kakamega forest through a program of fencing the forest, where we are collaborating with various stakeholders. And I know I'll be talking more about it as we progress. So we are taking seriously matters climate action and climate change, because if we don't do that, then our food security will be threatened. Thank you.
Okay. Definitely we'll delve further to the mitigations, because I know there are quite a number of them that you put in place. But let me also get an overview from Vihiga County, from inside, and of course the larger region. This is Western region. Governor Otichilo.
Thank you, Ken. Ken, I would like to ask you to give me just 1 minute to give a general overview about climate change in this country. Kenya is one of the few countries in Africa and globally that has taken climate change seriously. And we are among the few countries that have enacted Climate Change Act. The first act was enacted in 2016, and I happened to have been in the parliament, and I was the promoter of that act. Kenya enacted the first climate change policy in 2009. And 2010, we came up with the Kenya Climate Change Strategy. 2012, we came up with the Kenya Climate Change Implementation Plan, a 5-year development plan. So Ken, what I want to put on record is that Kenya is a leader in climate change issues. And Kenya has played a crucial role at the global level, at the UNFCCC conference of parties in terms of climate change. And I want also to real loud, the current government has taken climate change very seriously. And our president is now the champion of climate change for Africa. And even globally, he's now a major champion in this area. So I want to say that Kenya, we are a leader, and as of now, through the efforts of our president, climate change has been taken to a different level in Africa. And we are seeing a complete change of attitude, whereby instead of us as African countries going to the conference of parties to lament and say that we need to be helped, we are now saying that we are at the table, we must negotiate, it's a global problem, and we should all deal together.
Okay.
Now, let me come back now to the counties.
Yes.
Counties have also done extremely well. And also Kenya is a leader now in sub-national governments globally in terms of taking clear initiatives on how to deal with climate change. And the 47 counties have enacted all the policy and legal frameworks that are required to be able to deal with climate change. And as a result of that, Kenya is one of the first countries in Africa to qualify to get funding from the World Bank and all other multilateral partners to fund climate change. And during the Africa Climate Summit in September this year in Nairobi, we were able to launch the first funding for Kenya of 7.3 billion Kenya shillings. And I'm happy to report here that last week the parliament passed the conditional bill, and now the president signed on Friday, and from next week the 47 counties will now access 7.4 billion shillings.
They have a legal framework for accessing that fund.
Legal framework,
yes.
And therefore the money will be coming in, and the money will be coming in for adaptation.
Okay. Governor, let me ask you, are the policies harmonized? Are they uniform, or they are based on the needs in those counties?
The policies are basing on the national policy, which is overriding, which takes precedence over the lower policies.
Okay.
And then also the Climate Change Act of 2016, which has been amended in 2023, also takes precedence over the counties.
Okay.
But the counties have unique aspects, because counties are not the same.
Yeah.
So you find they are varying from one end to another, depending on which is the key climate challenge in each of the counties. Now back to Vihiga. Vihiga is one county that also has various challenges on climate change. The impacts of climate change are apparent, they are clear, and people are now facing and feeling the impact.
Okay.
And particularly the variability, the change in rainfall, the way the madam said. The rainfall, the seasons are no longer consistent. Like, for example, now, we are in March, but people have not planted.
Mm-hmm.
It's now that they are trying to prepare the fields, but it's raining. So people are confused.
Why is it raining right now?
Yeah. And it's raining, so they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so climate change has become a challenge,
okay,
and we need to deal with it.
I will come back to you, and Prof, I'd like you to weigh in on this. Paint a picture for us on what we have done wrong. Then I'll come to Judith also before I go to Governor. Paint a picture of exactly where we have gone wrong.
Thank you. When I started, I think I categorized this problem into two, and we have to be considering that even when we make policies. What we have done wrong, I have already mentioned that our poor land practices have caused this problem. But the solution we are doing, we have to be very careful. We must do the right thing. Example, what am I saying? Now we have been told by the governor, and we thank you very much for your committee in Parliament, that we have gotten this money. I'm saying that if somewhere in, let us say, Vihiga, in Kaimosi area or Hamisi, there's degradation of land, there's encroachment in these catchment areas, and there's the destruction of trees, and all those things that we say they are good, the wetland, the springs are there, we find it's no longer there. But now you don't go and take acacia tree from Naivasha to plant there. So you plant the right vegetation. The thing is not afforestation. It should be restoration of what we had. Because once you do that and do it wrongly, then again you will change the whole biodiversity of the area, and another problem will come in. So our aim should be restoration. When we get this money, please, not just, you cannot now solve a problem, let us say in Naivasha. I'm saying Naivasha because it's where we pass and everybody knows. It's acacia tree. But you want to mitigate there and you bring, let's say, gravelia in Naivasha. You have caused a lot of problems in Naivasha again. So that's what we are saying. Maybe we have to be very careful. And here we need experts. That's why we have to work with expert governors, I think. And in this university, we have looked at it in that two form. We have two teams here. We have those ones that are mitigating the category I said one, whereby it is us who destroy the environment because of population, and we are not taught. So there is a team that is working on that. But there is a team that is now working on the whole problem of climate change that is global. That is global politics, whereby the cause is not necessarily vegetation-based, but it is because of fossil fuel. We are using a lot of fossil fuel, and this is what is causing a lot of climate change. But these small ones, we can mitigate them by
we'll
this.
Talk about mitigation,
yes.
but I just wanted us to paint that picture because, Judith, understanding probably from the crowd and people watching at home, they may not even know that what they are doing is wrong. That's why I wanted an understanding of what is this picture of what we have done wrong. And an example you've given is degradation of our soil. I don't understand what you mean by that, so probably you can explain to me when the farmers at home are looking at it. I know transplanting of the trees is a huge issue, but paint for me that picture of what we have done wrong to get us to this point that now we have to start being accountable.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. I think we have done as, when we say we mean all human beings. We have contributed to climate change in one way or another. And it's as basic as starting from home. The use of chemicals, some gadgets that we use, the energy, are we using renewable energy? It's as basic as, are we using synthetic chemical fertilizers in our soil that end up in the cycle to our main rivers? That is one thing we can look at. Are we using the appropriate fuel? Are we cutting down the trees to use firewood? That is another way. And also, as Prof has said, the fossil fuels, are we celebrating driving more than walking and taking our bicycles as we used to do? Are we using the appropriate gadgets that, let's say, the fridges at home? Are they producing the greenhouse gases? Let me put it that way. I don't want to say the hydrochloro, those gases that contribute to that. And then is as basic as, are we using our water sustainably back at home? And yeah, the practices, basic practices that we do in our various areas, in our industries. Are we recycling our water? Are we using appropriate chemicals, or there's no regard for what we are using? So those are some of the things that we do, I would say innocently, quote unquote, but they have an impact to the environment.
I'm going to go to a setup, but Governor Fernandez, I want to know the role of civic education. Have we failed to educate the masses on what they're doing that could be wrong or could be right or could promote or could degrade?
What I want to confirm here is there was a concern about civic education. And that's why, as counties, we have started by having champions at the ward level. Because we realize that we have to start from the bottom. I'm not talking about bottom up, but it's really from the bottom. So that the world's climate action champions, they now become our change agents.
Okay.
And some of the funds which Governor Otichilo has talked about will come to support those committees at world level. Of course, we're also looking at now partnering with various agencies like the Kenya Water Towers Agency, which has become very critical in establishment of nurseries for indigenous trees. And I want to agree to a large extent with Prof. Orata that besides reforestation, we also look at restoration. Okay. We encourage our farmers in various village units to talk about or rather practice planting indigenous trees.
Okay.
I know in Kakamega we have lost some attractive tourist sites. For example, our crying stone is no longer crying because the neighborhood, they have started, they actually planted eucalyptus trees instead of
drain all the water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you plant eucalyptus trees, they sip all the water. Mm-hmm. And this crying stone has really been one of the epitome of Kakamega County's tourist site. So we're encouraging our farmers, our people, through those ward committees, so that at least the sensitization is now taken across the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be coming to Prof. I'd like to know if academia can dig into that fund also that Governor Dr. Tichilo spoke about. But let me take it to Aseto. He tells me there are a number of questions that are being asked from the crowd. Aseto?
And from where I stand now, it is a question of the crying stone is no longer crying. Maybe we should be crying because the crying stone is not crying. But from my end now, it is the question of academia and where we are. Let us just listen to what it is they are telling the students, how best we can mitigate this, because they feed into the pool of experts. And I will just have my good gentleman here to just kindly stand and give us a view of the academia when it comes to issues to do with the climate change and how best we can tackle them. Can you just be upstanding?
Thank you, Ken, for the opportunity. My name is Dr. Oduoro Thieno. I teach climate change and disaster risk reduction at this university. Climate change is responsible for the increased number of natural disasters that we are now witnessing all over the country, prolonged droughts, and very many others. And indeed, climate change is with us here. But the issue here is that taking down the climate science to the people at the grassroots, when you go down to the grassroots, you find that climate change awareness is still very low. But where climate change awareness remains low to that level at the grassroots, then it means that we may not be able to come up with innovative solutions to tackle the current problems of climate change. So issues of climate change, we need to tackle awareness at the grassroots level. And also when it comes to climate science, you go down to the grassroots levels, the primary schools. Some of those students are not even aware of what climate change is really. So they may be need to try and inject climate change into most of those things we are doing at grassroots levels, introduce climate change into the curriculum that we are teaching at primary level and even at secondary level should be a must. Because if the knowledge of climate change remains low at the grassroots level the way it is, then formulating effective solutions to tackle climate change will remain a problem.
Thank you very much. And we'll come back to more of your insights a little bit later. But let me also just talk to one of the individuals here who's also in academia. And briefly, sir, where are we? Do we teach our students the right thing? The curriculum has been spoken to. What is your view?
Yeah, indeed, as it is now, we appreciate that climate change is here with us, and we cannot reverse it. It is not a new phenomenon. It has been there since the creation of the earth. But what has happened is that there has been intensification on the factors influencing the occurrence of climate change. Now, as we come to our counties and communities and how they can contribute, I want just to ask you to look around and see the composition of this hall. We need to be all-inclusive. What are we doing with our youth? How are we involving our youth? How are we involving people with disability, the women, the elderly men, and vulnerable groups? How are we involving them? So if we are all inclusive in looking for resilience, in working on resilience to climate change, then I think we can get somewhere. We need to involve everybody and ensure nobody remains behind. Thank you.
And yes, indeed.